Ben Domenech is the co-founder and the publisher of The Federalist. He's got a daily newsletter called The Transom, which is well worth your time. And this week, of all weeks, boy, what a week, he is hosting the 7 p.m. hour on Fox News and doing an incredible job at it. Ben, my friend, first of all, great to talk with you, and congratulations on 2 shows in the can that are absolutely legendary. Well done, sir.
Well, thank you, Larry. I mean, I'm told that, the challenges that can face you when you are a primetime host include, a presidential speech, on-the-ground reporting, having to go live to multiple different guests, and having no commercial breaks. And I got all 4 of those last night.
You sure did.
So that was fun.
You sure did. Since I've started in this business in commercial broadcasting, at least, we put down our rundown, we book our guests, we plan it out perfectly, and then the last thing we always say to each other before we start, breaking news changes everything, and it sure did yesterday. Well, I'd love for your reflections. I mean, I caught a little bit of it, but I think as host of a program, especially on television, that is, it's incumbent on you to explain where you stand on this in your observations, but really your job last night was to draw news and draw observations out of other people, and you did very well, especially with Brit Hume. Where do you stand on this, what we saw transpire last night? See, me personally, I see the system working, but now I'm told by the left that this is a sign that the system is broke.
I feel like this is not the right verdict for a number of reasons. I think that Derek Chauvin was overcharged. I would have voted. I would have voted if I was on that jury for manslaughter, because I do believe that the case was made pretty strongly that had he not engaged in the behavior that he did, that George Floyd might be alive. Yeah. But I think that murder 2 in particular is just way overcharging Derek Chauvin, given the context of this. At the same time, I think you're completely correct in the sense that the left wants to take anything away from this that will allow them to continue their agenda, which is a radical agenda, which is one that is designed to essentially foment racial strife across the country, which they believe redounds to their political benefit. And I think that this is something that, really should be indicted as what it is, which is a gross and terrible approach to engaging with the American polity. And I think that this is something that, unfortunately, the left is going to continue to do. And look, I saw that comment from Nancy Pelosi yesterday.
Yes.
About, thank you, George Floyd.
So again, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice.
Wow. She went on, but that's enough. Yeah, go ahead and spin off that, Ben.
I mean, I cannot believe some of these octogenarian politicians that we have in Washington. It's just, I don't know whether you're supposed to give them excuses for this sort of behavior, but I mean, that was just deeply offensive to me. And look, I think that, policing deserves to be reformed in a lot of different ways in America. We need to have more training. We need to have more of a requirement placed upon officers. But the fact is that, police are not engaged in some type of genocide targeting young black men in America. Right. And the left continues to advance this completely, at odds with the facts approach that says that that's the case. And I think that we need to have politicians who push back against that, who call it out for being the lie that it is.
Which brings us to what Brit Hume said last night on your program. Brit Hume got a lot of attention for saying this, but it should be pointed out, I'll point it out, that it was our guest, Ben Domenech, who was hosting on Fox News, that drew this out of Brit Hume, sort of the sage elder statesman in the room there over at Fox News, and really in many halls of journalism, where he said exactly that, sir. Ben, he said, we've got to push back on this. We have to shout it out as loud as we can, that this is actually the least racist country in the world. The fact is that we've made greater strides than any other nation considering our diversity. And no, our country is not systemically racist. Is there room for us to be able to shout that at the highest rooftops? Or do we have to just sit and shut our mouth in our company's diversity training sessions and have that national conversation of race, which is really a lecture where we are all supposed to just admit, oh, yes, we are racist. Can we move on now and try to make some sales?
Look, the Ibram X. Kendis of the world, the Robin DiAngelos of the world, they are never going to acknowledge that America in 2021 is really the best place to live if you are an ethnic minority. If you look back through the entire history of the world, this is the best place to be right now at this moment. And yet they will not acknowledge that. They will not address it. They will not allow any kind of positive reference to the United States of America within this context. And so I just think that, look, this is something that we're going to have to continue to fight. We're going to have to continue to argue against, and it's going to be a challenge going forward, no matter what really comes out of this in terms of legislation or anything else that has changed because of this.
Which I think brings us, Ben, to sort of the wider scope of what you're hoping to achieve, it appears, this week when you're given this great honor and great privilege of having 7 p.m. after Bret Baier and right before the primetime lineup starts with Gusto on Fox News. And you said at the beginning of the week that your theme is American crisis. And part of American crisis is to point out what that crisis is. But I really appreciate that you're actually also talking about resolutions and solutions for us to be able to arm ourselves and to be able to fight back against that crisis. Sum this up for me. What do you, if you can, obviously you're doing it across 5 hours this week at 7 p.m. on Fox, but what is this American crisis in its essence?
I think in its essence, Larry, what we are confronting is a left that has turned totalitarian. The American left has not historically been one that was overwhelmed by its totalitarian impulses. There were liberals within it. There were people who viewed themselves as part of the American experiment, who did not reject the ideas that were fundamental to the founding, and who praised, not just the flag, but honored the religion of people with whom they disagreed. And unfortunately, I believe that the left has been taken over by its totalitarian impulses, that it now resembles, in many ways, a Maoist, cultural revolution-minded left that is, unfortunately, totally at odds with and incompatible with our basic American founding principles. And I think that crisis is something that we have been loath to address because it requires calling out all of these different entities that have been, major institutions in American society. But the simple fact is that we cannot have a continual American experiment in a situation in which the ruling elite class of the left is of the mind to force anybody who is in disagreement with them to bend the knee and to, unfortunately, lead us to a point where they want to consider a national divorce, a civil war that is raging across the country in terms of our cultural battles. And I think that, unfortunately, they were able to achieve the White House with a Trojan horse in Joe Biden, who said that he was going to bring unity, said that he wanted to bring the country back together, but has shown and has demonstrated in these early months that it was just a farce. He was never really going to do that. And unfortunately, we find ourselves at this point where I think this has to be named, it has to be called out, it has to be addressed, and we have to meet it as it is, as opposed to as we would like it to be.
Well, so many threads that I want to pull on there. Let me start with this, and I noticed this, and I actually wrote it down as I watched your opening monologue Monday, laying out this American crisis. You made a point to establish and recognize that our nation is made up of multiple ethnicities. I believe you chose that word on purpose because multiculturalism, of course, has been something that's infiltrated academia and every aspect of our national dialogue for the last several decades. And there's an important distinction. We have always been multi-ethnic, but we have not been multicultural. There had been a unique American culture. And was this a concerted campaign to try to whittle down, in the name of multiculturalism, which sounds good until you think about it, to whittle down that unique American identity, the one thing, despite our religion, our nation of origin, and our skin color, we could all embrace this singular culture, the American culture?
Larry, you're completely correct. And yes, we have been multi-ethnic throughout our history, but the American monoculture is a good thing. It's something that we are able to share and find in public spaces together. as opposed to
It's what every nation on the planet has, even Canada, for God's sake. Why shouldn't we embrace ours?
Even Canada.
Even Canada.
But yes, you're completely correct, and this is a situation that I think, unfortunately, has been exploited by the left. That they basically use the pleasant sounding words of multiculturalism in order to advocate for something that actually breaks America apart. The whole point of E pluribus unum is out of many one. We are united in our praise for the flag, for the anthem, for the things that we hold dear, and for the values that are espoused in our founding documents. That's the whole point. It's what makes America strong. It's what has made us the envy of the world. And as we lose those things, as the left tries to take them away from us, we see the alternative, which is just a constant rap of subjugation, of rejection, of segregation, which is all the things that they actually want. They want to split us up into categories. They want to split us up into the different lanes that we operate in. They want to have people who are categorized based on not anything that they've done, but what their family history is, what their blood comes from. It's fundamentally anti-American, and it's something we have to reject.
So, Ben Domenech, in our final moments here, let's embrace that spirit of solutions, of paths forward, at least, or where we can start to remedy this situation. You've reached out. You had Naomi Wolf on Monday, a woman of the left, a feminist from the 90s heyday, although she looks like she's starting to rethink some of her political affiliations right now. And by the way, forgive me for doing this, because I know that it's something that is annoying. It's annoying in my marriage as well. But your wife, Meghan McCain, has reached out and worked with Van Jones. And I'm not saying, well, your wife does this, that means you must do that. Obviously, you are two independent individuals. But I'm fascinated by that. I would love to have Van Jones on the show. I want to talk to him. Even if I'm not going to agree with him, I want to understand. And I think he's a very articulate spokesperson for political ideas that I don't agree with. So is that what's needed? Do we need to forge the alliances, even with people that we fundamentally disagree with, but at least show that we can at least discuss these things and figure out something, anything that we might have in common?
To me, what I think needs to happen is we need to drive a wedge between the people on the left or liberals who still believe in the basic principles of free speech and free thought, and the people who don't. The fact is that at the moment, the Steven Pinkers of the world are on the same stage as the Ibram X. Kendis. And Ibram X. Kendi is someone who does not believe in freedom of thought, freedom of speech, or anything of the like. He is both, from his perspective, he believes that capitalism is fundamentally racist and must be destroyed. Yeah. And so from my perspective, we have to reach a point where the Pinkers of the world, who are, again, not someone who you would agree with on the vast majority of issues, find that they realize that the evangelical Christian in the American South actually has more in common with them than the people who are being, hailed and put up in all of these different vaunted institutions backed by corporate dollars with this woke agenda that will ultimately lead to the decline of speech, the decline of freedom of thought in America.
So who's on the show tonight?
On the show tonight, Ted Cruz, Newt Gingrich, and a number of other interesting people, including Chef Andrew Gruel, who I'm a big fan of, to talk about the permanent lockdown that he's experiencing in California.
Oh, absolutely.
So should be a good show.
See, like Leo Terrell, Chef Gruel got his claim to fame here on this very program, and now he's just the hottest thing since sliced bread. That's fine. It's okay. We don't mind being the kingmaker, Ben. It's okay. We embrace that, actually. Ben, again, congratulations. Great job this week. Looking forward to the next 3 programs, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Larry. I'm holding on for dear life.
I bet you are. That's Ben Domenech, boys and girls, over there at thefederalist.com, and tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, if you're so inclined.